But Brian, I don't qualify for Canadian OAS. I didn't live in Canada for 20 years after the age of 18. We debunk that and three other myths about collecting Canadian OAS here in the United States. Hello, my name is Brian Haggard. I'm a certified financial planner, chartered financial analyst. I'm the founder of RetireMitten Financial. We help simplify your cross-border retirement plan. And when we're putting together our clients' retirement plans for them, I think probably the benefit that is missed the most is the OAS benefit, the old age supplement. Most of our clients know they qualify for US Social Security. Most of them have a handle on the Canada Pension Plan, CPP. But it's the OAS that a lot of them forget or just have misconceptions if they actually can collect it or not. Today, we're going to talk about some of those misconceptions, some of those myths, and start to clarify your OAS benefit here in the United States. Now, how probably the biggest myth that most people have is that you have to have lived in Canada for 20 years after the age of 18 to qualify for an OAS benefit here in the United States. Now, first of all, why is this a myth? Now, typically that is the case. In order for you to collect OAS outside of Canada, you do have to have lived in Canada for 20 years after the age of 18 to qualify for the benefit. However, because of the US and Canada totalization agreement, it's a little easier to qualify for OAS. You can combine how many years you lived in Canada after the age of 18, plus how many years you worked in the US to qualify to meet that 20-year rule. So, for example, I have a lot of clients that have moved here to the US when they were 33, 34, 35 years old and have now spent their last 20, 30 years working in the US and now they're going to retire here in the US. And a lot of them think, well, Brian, I was only in Canada for 15, 16, 17 years. I'm not going to qualify for an OAS benefit. But because they worked here in the States, and because their work here in the States helped them reach that 20-year threshold, they do qualify for an OAS benefit. This is kind of the misconception that a lot of people have. You can even call Service Canada and they may not be aware that you qualify for an OAS benefit. Actually, you may apply for OAS as a US resident and get denied, even though you do qualify for it. Now, just a word to the wise, if you need US Social Security to help you qualify for OAS, if you have less than 20 years of Canadian residency, it's going to take a while. It may take a year or two before you actually qualify and start receiving your OAS benefits. Don't worry, they will give you a retroactive lump sum payment. I've had clients receiving tens of thousands of dollars in lump sum payments from OAS because it took so long for their benefit to get started. But that first myth that a lot of people have is I don't qualify for OAS because I have less than 20 years of Canadian residency. And for most people, that's just not true. The second myth that we hear quite often is, well, Brian, sure, maybe I qualify for OAS, but my income is too high for me to get anything anyway. So what's the point? And that is the case for a lot of people. If you are going to retire in Canada or many other countries, that if your income exceeds a certain threshold, it's about 93,000 Canadian, your OAS benefit starts to get reduced. And actually, if you earn over 152,000 Canadian or so here in 2025, your OAS benefit would be completely eliminated. However, this is not the case if you retire here in the United States. As a US resident, there are no income thresholds. Your OAS benefit will never be clawed back. And that is a big benefit for clients that are going to retire here in the US versus Canada. I sometimes will see that they'll receive an extra $1,000 a month in OAS benefits between a couple spouses that they may not get at all in Canada because their income is so high or too high. So this is a big myth or a big kind of misconception that people have is just doesn't make sense for me to turn this benefit on because my income is too high. And that is just not the case for US residents. Even when you're applying for OAS, they're going to ask you what your income is. And it doesn't specify on there that this does not apply to US residents. But again, as a US resident, there is no income clawback, no matter what your income is for your OAS benefit. Another myth or misconception that we hear quite often is that your OAS benefit must be deposited in Canadian dollars into a Canadian checking account. However, that is also not the case. Actually, for most of my clients that are living here in the US, most of their expenses are here in the US. I will typically suggest that they have their CPP and OAS deposited right into a US bank account. And you can do that. And quite honestly, it's a lot easier for them to make the exchange and deposit into the US bank account as opposed to you doing it yourself. So if you have the funds deposited into a US bank account, the Canadian government will actually do the exchange for you. You're going to get a much better exchange rate than you would try to get if you were doing this on your own. And there's really no fees for them to do that either. So the Canadian government will direct deposit that, they'll do the exchange, and then they'll send the money in US dollars right into your US bank. So your US bank is also not taking any of it. Again, this is much easier than you trying to move money over the border yourself, much less fees. And so for a lot of our clients, we do suggest having that money direct deposit into a US bank account. And a lot of our clients don't know that's even a choice for them. The other misconception or myth that we hear quite often is, Brian, I don't even want to turn on my OAS benefit and CPP benefit because I don't want to have to start dealing with Canadian taxes again. Again, this is a myth. Collecting CPP and OAS as a US resident would not be a reason that you would now have to start filing Canadian taxes. Most of the clients that we work with, and all of our clients are essentially cross-border retirees or people who have lived in both the US and Canada. Most of our clients do not file a Canadian tax return. Sometimes they will have to if they have rental income or if maybe they have stock options up in Canada that they're collecting as US residents. But if you are turning on your OAS or CPP benefit, that would not be a reason that you would now have to start filing Canadian tax return. And actually, there's a lot more benefits from there. First of all, Canada doesn't withhold anything on an OAS payment. They don't get paid any taxes on that. You receive the full amount of your OAS or CPP for that matter. Now, that will have to be reported on your US tax return, but it gets counted as Social Security here in the US. And that's another big benefit for you. Most states don't tax Social Security, so there's some benefits there for you. And Social Security is more tax friendly on the federal level as well. So, although you may have to pay taxes on your OAS and CPP benefit, you won't have to file Canadian taxes on it. Canada is not going to take anything from you on those benefits. You don't have to worry about foreign tax credits. And for most people, the taxes are going to be lower than if that's going to be just normal, ordinary income on your US tax return. OAS is just one of the many things that people tend to get wrong about their cross border retirement plan. If you're interested in working with a cross border financial planner who can help put together your US and Canadian benefits and retirement accounts, please feel free to schedule a complimentary consultation at our website, retiremitten.com. Thanks, and we look forward to speaking with you.